We continue now at the top of Daf Samach Bezam and Bezam Meseches Menachos. This is Menachos Daf 62b. On the previous summit, the Gemara brought a Baraisa with a Machlokas Tanoim by the Zivchei Shalmei Tzibur, the communal shlamim that refers to the Kivsei Atzeres, the sheep of Shavuos. With regards to those, not only is tenufa needed, waving needed, mechayim while the animal's alive, but also the tenufa is needed after the animal is slaughtered, shchutin, when the kivsei atzeres, when they're slaughtered, they need to be waved as well. And there was a machlokas tanoim, how much is waved. According to Rebbe, the entire animal is waved, even after shchita, after it's slaughtered. And according to the Rabbanan, it's just the chaz of a shok, the breast and the thigh, that are waved. And the Gemara now continues with another approach to understanding that machlokas. Rav Papa Amar, Rav Papa says, the kuli alma, everybody agrees, both the Rebbe and the Rabbanan agree, don mina uminohu, that what we say, when we learn one thing from another, in this case we're learning Zivchei Shalmei Tzibur from Zivchei Shalmei Yachid, from the individual shlamim, so we learn from Shalmei Yachid, and we learn the details of the halacha from there as well. Now if we learn the details, so then the Rabbanan makes sense, because by Zivchei Shalmei Yachid, it's just the chaz of a shok that are waved, and so therefore the same should be true by Zivchei Shalmei Tzibur. But why does Rebbe say the entire Zivchei Shalmei Tzibur is waved even after Shchita? V'hainu time of the Rebbe. Now this is the reason of Rebbe, even though he's learning entirely from Zivchei Shalmei Yachid, but it goes as follows. Ki hasam, that follows over there, it does follow those particulars. Why? Because ma hasam davar shematana lekohen, just like over there, what is waved is what is gifted to the kohen. So af hacha, so too over here by Zivchei Shalmei Tzibur, davar shematana lekohen, what's being waved, which is in the entire thing, is what is being gifted to the kohen. Rashi explains, Ma lahalon b'shalmei yachid, davar shematana lekohen ton tenufa, just like by the shalmei yachid, that which is gifted to the kohen requires tenufa waving. So af, so too over here, v'hainu kulan shleimim, and over here, that would be the entire animal. Aval mishalmei yachid ein lekohen el chaz of shok, but by shalmei yachid, the kohen only receives the chaz of shok, and so therefore that's the explanation of the machlokus between Rebbe and the Rabbanan. According to Rav Papa, again, davar shematana lekohen, it follows what is gifted to the kohen. And the Gemara continues with another answer. Ravina Amar Ravina says, the kuli alma don minov, you could be asked for the opposite. Everybody agrees you learn from Zivchei Shalmei Yachid, but the particulars are learned from Zivchei Shalmei Tzibur. Now if the particulars are learned from Zivchei Shalmei Tzibur, so Zivchei Shalmei Tzibur, they're waved while alive when they are whole. So after Shchita also they should be waved whole. Therefore the Rebbe makes sense. The question is the Rabbanan. V'hainu time of the Rabbanan. Now the reason of the Rabbanan is as follows. Shalmeihem ribuyahu. The word Shalmeihem is an inclusion. Rashi explains, Shalmeihem b'Shalmei Yachid, because if the word Shalmeihem is written by an individual shlamim, it says, Es chazeh hatanufa v'es shok hatruma lakachti me'es b'nei Yisrael mizivchei Shalmeihem. It talks about the chazeh hatanufa and the shok hatruma, the chazeh and the shok, and it says the word Shalmeihem to mashma lashon rabim. Now that's mashma, a language of plural. V'havalei lemechtav lashon yachid. It really should have said it lashon yachid in singular. To be yachid mishtay, we're talking about the singular over here. Uminichsiv lashon rabim, but from the fact that it says lashon rabim, lomar al chazav shok shel shalmei tzibur sheyunfa. What that plural, what that is indicating is that when it comes to Shalmei Tzibur, it's the Chaz of Shok. Just like we find the Chaz of Shok is what is waved by the Zivchei Shalmei Yachid, the same is true by the Zivchei Shalmei Tzibur. That's what is indicated by the plural language. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said, Rabbi Shimon Omer, Rabbi Shimon says, Shlosha minin, there are three types that to unin shalosh mitzvahs, that they require three mitzvahs, but they don't each require all three. Each of them require only two of the three. Shtayim b'chal echad, two by each one of them, ushlish esein ben, but the third doesn't apply. As Rabbi Shimon now goes on to explain in the Mishnah, Ve'elohein, they are as follows: Zivchei Shalmei Yachid, the individual shlamim, V'zivchei Shalmei Tzibur, and then the communal shlamim, which again is the Shnei Kavasim of Atzeres of Shavuos, V'asham Mitzorah, and then the third is the Asham of the Mitzorah. And Rabbi Shimon explains as follows: Zivchei Shalmei Yachid tunin smicha chayim utenufa shchut, and the Zivchei Shalmei Yachid, the individual shlamim, that requires smicha, leaning upon the animal while it's alive, and waving shchutin after the animal has been slaughtered. However, ve'ein bohen tenufa chayim, there is no requirement of waving while alive by Zivchei Shalmei Yachid. Zivchei Shalmei Tzibur, with regards to communal shlamim, tunin tenufa chayim ushchutin, they require waving both alive and after slaughtered. Ve'ein bohen smicha, but there's no requirement of leaning upon the animal. And Asham Mitzorah, with regards to Asham Mitzorah, Ta'un Smicha Utenufa Chai, there's a requirement of leaning upon the animal and waving the animal while alive. V'ein bo Tenufa Shachot, there is no requirement of waving after the animal has been slaughtered. And the Gemara continues now, V'yiu zivchei shal meyachid. Why don't we say as follows? Let us say that zivchei shal meyachid, the shlam of the individual, to unin and to nufa chayim, mikal v'chomer. We should say there is a requirement of waving while alive, because we can make the following kal v'chomer. Uma zivchei shal meitzibor she'ein to unin smicha chayim. If the communal shlamim, which doesn't require smicha when alive, to unin to nufa chayim, that does require waving when alive. So therefore, the Gemara continues, zivchei shal meyachid, with regards to individual shlamim, she'tu'unin smicha chayim, which require leaning when alive. Eino din she'tu'unin tenufa chayim. Doesn't it make sense to say, isn't it logical to say they require waving when alive? And the Gemara says to that, the reason why we don't make that kal v'chomer is because mi'et rachamona gabe zivchei shal meitzibur. There's an exclusion written by zivchei shal meitzibur, by the communal shlamim. It says osam, it says them, and osam lemu'ute zivchei shal meyachid. The word osam is an exclusion. It comes to exclude zivchei shal meyachid, and therefore essentially saying that zivchei shal meyachid do not require tenufa when alive. And the Gemara continues and asks, "V'yu zivchei shal meitzibur tu'unin smicha mikal v'chomer." Why don't we say that the communal shlamim requires leaning? That should be from the following kal v'chomer. Uma zivchei shal meyachid she'ein tu'unin tenufa chayim. If by zivchei shal meyachid, which they do not require waving when alive, tu'unin smicha, they require leaning upon the animal. Zivchei shal meitzibur she'tu'unin tenufa chayim. So zivchei shal meitzibur, communal shlamim that require waving when alive, eino din she'tu'unin smicha. Isn't it logical to say they require smicha? And the Gemara says to that, Amar Ravina says, Gemiri shtei smichos betzibor. It is learned, it is a tradition, that there are two smichos communally. And Rashi explains, Gemiri, it is a tradition, misinai, it's a tradition from Sinai, beis smichos betzibor, that there are only two smichos, two leanings upon the animals by communal carbon. They are by the par helam dover shal tzibor, by the bull that's brought when the community sins, dechsiv v'samchu ziknei ha'edel, like it says v'samchu over there, u'sir ha'mishtaleach, and also the he-goat that is sent away on Yom Kippur, dechsiv v'samach Aaron shtei yadav, it says v'samach over there, u'mitzibor, that's considered, that is mitzibor, it's from the communal funds, v'su leka shum smicha betzibor, there is no other example of smicha by a communal carbon, and that's why zivchei shal meitzibor has no smicha. And the Gemara continues and asks, V'yehei asham mitzora ton tenufa shachad mikal v'chomer. Why don't we say that the asham of a mitzora, of a leper, that requires waving after being slaughtered, and we should say that from the following kal v'chomer, ma zivchei shal meyachid, if when it comes to zivchei shal meyachid, the individual shlamim, she'ein te'unin tenufa chayim, te'unin tenufa shchutin, they do not require waving when alive, but they do require waving after being slaughtered. So asham mitzora shaton tenufa chayim, odin shaton tenufa shachad, the asham mitzora, which does require waving when alive, isn't it logical to say it requires waving when it's slaughtered? And to that the Gemara says, Mi'et rachmona gabe zivchei shal meyachid, there is an exclusion by zivchei shal meyachid. It says oso, it says it. Oso, when it says the word oso, l'ma'ute asham mitzora, that comes to exclude asham mitzora, and therefore asham mitzora does not require tenufa after it is slaughtered. And the Gemara continues, Tana Rabbanan, the sages taught in the Braisa, Chamisha shehiviu carbon echad. Let's say 5 individuals bring one carbon. Echad meinef al yedei kulam. One does the waving for all of them. V'ha'isha, and with regards to a woman, Kohen meinef al yada, the Kohen, he does the waving for her. V'chein hashaleach karbonosav mimedinas hayam. And similarly, one who sends his karbonos from overseas, from far away, Kohen meinef al yada. It's the Kohen that does the tenufa, that does the waving for him. And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Samech Gimel Amid Aleph.